Bill Clinton and his inaugural address, a speech that he wrote himself. No one ringing phrase sticks out of my memory. A speech welcoming change in America, embracing it. A speech directed at inner America rather than at the role of America in the wider world. A call to renewal and a call for every citizen to take part in it.
He hit all the watchwords, Tom. Renewal, sacrifice, responsibility, reform, and for the record, he said change 9 times. And all of us who were worried about how long he might go, he wound up only going about 14 months.
Two principal themes of his administration, the themes that got him here in the first place, that the domestic agenda is the most important one,
shortly after
and that change is required.
Election, President Clinton asked noted educator, historian, and author Dr. Maya Angelou to compose a poem for this historic day. From Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and Wake Forest University, please welcome Dr. Angelou.
Mr. President and Mrs. Clinton, Mr. Vice President and Mrs. Gore, and Americans everywhere down here, you, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. It says, come, rest here by my side. Each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made, proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today, I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the rock were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sang and sings on. There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African, the Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher, they all hear the speaking of the tree. They hear the first and last of every tree speak to humankind today. Come to me, here beside the river. Plant yourself beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed-on traveler, has been paid for. You who gave me my first name, you Pawnee, Apache, Seneca, you Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold. You the Turk, the Arab, the Swede, the German, the Eskimo, the Scot, you the Ashanti, the Yoruba, the Kru, bought, sold, stolen, arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream. Here, root yourselves beside me. I am that tree planted by the river which will not be moved. I the rock, I the river, I the tree, I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
Dr. Maya Angelou, completing the poem on the pulse of morning, asked why Bill Clinton selected her. She said because all of her works talk of all-inclusiveness and touch a chord in as many people as possible. And that's what she tried to paint today, some broad strokes that asked us to look at each other.
I thought it was a very evocative piece of work. The words, tenor, the performance.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the 1993 presidential inauguration. As soon as the ceremony is over, my colleague on the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the distinguished Senator from Alaska, Ted Stevens, will form the presidential escort to the east front of the Capitol. To conclude our program now, please rise for the benediction by Reverend Billy Graham and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by Marilyn Horne. Reverend Graham.
Our Father, we pray that as we come to the end of this ceremony, that we will long remember the challenges that we have heard. And we dedicate ourselves to do everything in our power to keep those challenges and to dedicate ourselves anew, not only to you, but to America and all the great ideals that we stand for. We pray again that thou wouldst bless the President and the Vice President as they lead us in the years to come. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Marilyn Horne now will sing the national anthem to conclude these ceremonies at the Capitol. There is some official business to be conducted in the Capitol, the signing of the nomination papers for the new cabinet. stadia across the country, they say play ball after this. But here in Washington, let the Clinton era begin. The business of governing this nation, of restoring its economy, of healing its political divisions, of dealing with a profoundly changed world, now falls on the shoulders of that young man before you, 46-year-old Bill Clinton, the new President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief, Chief Executive.
And with that anthem, most of the solemn moments of this day have been concluded, with the exception of the formal signing of some papers that Bill Clinton will do when he leaves the platform there. Shortly thereafterwards, we understand the Gores will escort the Quails to a Marine helicopter that will still be designated as Marine One, and then the Quails will wait inside that helicopter while the Clintons escort the Bushes. That copter will then proceed on out to Andrews Air Force Base, where the Quails and the Bushes will go their separate ways. The Bushes back to Houston, the Quails on to Florida for a little while before they return here in order that their children might finish out the school year. Katie Couric is still up on the platform. We'll see what kind of an advantage point she's got. Katie?
Hi, you guys. Actually, the senators have been very kind and have told me to stand on my chair since I am such a shrimp here. And it's a really incredible perspective from my vantage point. As you can see, President Clinton and the First Lady are now walking up the steps. There he is, shaking hands with everyone, of course, as he is so fond of doing. And it really was a very, very moving experience to be here and witness this. And I think everyone was very inspired by what they saw, the appreciation that President Clinton expressed to former president now, George Bush, which seems almost strange to say at this point.
Katie?
Yes, Tom?
What did the senators think of Bill Clinton's inaugural speech?
Let me ask them, Tom. Senator Sarbanes, what did you think of his speech?
Oh, I thought Governor Clinton President Clinton, now I've got to make that adjustment, gave a very good speech. I was struck it was very short, as a matter of fact, but I thought it was a real challenge to the country and a real call to Americans, all Americans, to join in what lies ahead.
And it was interesting to hear him resurrect so many of the themes used in his campaign of sacrifice, responsibility, and public service, wasn't it?
Those are themes he sounded throughout his public life and that he tried to put into place in Arkansas, and we're hopeful he's going to do it for the country at large.
Tom, we'll get one more opinion from Senator Metzenbaum. If you can come a little closer, Senator, because my mic cord doesn't stretch too far. What did you think of his inaugural address?
I was excited about it. I thought it was uplifting. I thought he talked about the issues that are facing this country and the world, and I think he gave a new sense of hope to those who are without hope at this moment. And I think all of us are happy to get on board and try to put the show on the road.
So Sarbanes and Metzenbaum give the inaugural address 2 thumbs up, Tom and Bryant.
Thank you very much, Katie Couric. I suppose if there is a central theme in all that, apart from change and renewal, it is that we can no longer expect something for nothing. That has been a recurring theme as well. And it's one of the reasons that Bill Clinton and others formed the Democratic Leadership Council to move the Democratic Party more into the center again and not to see it, the role of the federal government, as simply something that dispenses favors to every conceivable group, but the country to get righted is going to have to make some sacrifices.
In keeping with that, Tom, he was talking about responsibility, and it was interesting to note where Bill Clinton varied from the prepared text that we were handed when he was talking about powerful people maneuvering for position in Washington and forgetting about those who sent them here. His text had been written to say whose toil and sweat sends them here and pays their way. He changed it when he delivered it to say sends us here and pays our way.
We want to remind you of what's coming up here. Of course, we still have the inaugural parade, which begins, if we stay on schedule, at about 2 Eastern Time. There will be a lunch before that and a number of ceremonies inside the Capitol. NBC's Washington Bureau Chief Moderator of Meet the Press, Tim Russert, is down there in the Capitol area as well. Tim?
Tom, as well as a governmental passage, I was witnessing a political passage here. I watched very closely the looks that Joe Biden, Dick Gebhardt, Mario Cuomo, Jesse Jackson, Bill Bradley, a whole group of Democratic senators, congressmen, governors who chose not to run this year, looking at a young 46-year-old man. Their chance of being president may be gone forever. I reminded of Senator Howard Baker's comment when asked about whether they all wanted to be president. He said, "We all have a white suit in the closet."
Yeah. And Tim, as well, it's not just those people, of course, who will not have the chance to be president, but a lot of people who were loyal to them will not have a role in this government. Absolutely, Tom. Al Gore and Bill Clinton have picked a cabinet and a sub-cabinet very much of people who were dedicated to them early on, early and often, as they say in Chicago. And that was the code word certainly used throughout the selection process. One other point, Tom, that I ought to bring up, Bill Clinton's constant reference to national service, I believe, was an indication today that is the one domestic program he's going to try to find money for. There may be cuts across the board everywhere else, but he is serious about defining a national service program. All right, thank you very much, Tim Russert, who's down in the Capitol Plaza. You see the throngs of people that were assembled and paid very careful attention to the inaugural speech, to the music, the swearing in of Al Gore first, and then Bill Clinton, and that moving poem, A Pulse of the Morning, by Maya Angelou. Now they're beginning to disperse across the Capitol. They'll take up their positions along the parade route, many of them.
Not enough of them for some of their liking, although there are more tickets available. More than 75% of those have been allocated to people who were in a position to get such favors across their desk. John Chancellor is sitting across the room and has, of course, been all ears to the proceedings going on. John?
You know, Brian, it just, what we've seen are two guys taking a 35-word oath. Thank you. It's over. That's all it is. It's actually 39 words if you add "So help me God," which Washington added. But it's far more than that. It is this ceremony that we've all seen here at the Capitol for so many times in our history. It legitimizes the presidency, the bigness of it, the bands, the panoply, the pomp. It makes it more than just the 35-word oath taken by two men who are promising to do right by the country. And it fascinates me because it fixes the presidency for the people of the United States every 4 years and for the people of the world. And that's why I think the inaugural address is very important.
John, you go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to ask John, what did you think of Bill Clinton's speech?
I thought it was pretty much what we expected it to be. It was not a laundry list. It was sort of a panoramic view of what he may be doing. What struck me about it, Tom, more than anything else, is that we've had two bad news inaugural addresses in a row. In 1989, George Bush said, "Our funds are low. We have more will than wallet." And President Clinton said in 1993, "We have to face hard truths and take strong steps, but we have not done so," he said. "We have drifted." These are two fairly stern addresses to the country about a United States that's off the track, and we've had two in a row now. And otherwise, I thought it was a fine address and blessedly short. Thank you. 15 minutes.
He did hear the word brief. And speaking of brief, we'll be back briefly.
NBC News coverage of the Clinton inaugural will continue.
Saturday, 2 hours of Empty Nest and Nurses when Young Lust fills Empty Nest. And Cheers, John Ratzenberger visits Nurses. Then at 9, 8 Central, an all-new Empty Nest. Harry's a Vegas lounge lizard, but these babes want to cash in his chips. We were robbed! Then another outrageous Nurses. 2 hours of Empty Nest and Nurses. NBC Saturday.
Are your kids mooching off their mom?
He has hid his address and whereabouts from me so that I cannot collect any money.
This mom lent big bucks to her son and had to sue him to get it back.
Maybe every other week I would pay, you know, something on it.
Didn't you understand that your mother had to go out and get a second job to pay your bills?
When mom wants her money back in the next Oprah.
Oprah, today at 4 on Channel 5.
It's National's 99-cent sale with fresh whole chicken breasts, 99 cents a pound. Fresh pork steaks, 99 cents a pound. Pure and sweet sugar, 99 cents. Wishbone salad dressing, 99 cents. Brawny paper towels, 2 for 99 cents. Canned vegetables, 3 for 99 cents. President's Choice Cola 6-packs, 99 cents, and more. President's Choice Cola wants you to discover America. Register to win a trip for 4 to one of 4 great U.S. locations at the President's Choice Cola display at National.
Call the Volunteer 5 hotline today at 969-VOL-5.
We're back and awaiting the appearance of the new president of the United States, Bill Clinton, who, following his instincts, is shaking a lot of hands. He's a man who thoroughly enjoys the business of being a politician, talking to a lot of folks. Following the debates, he would stay for sometimes an hour in the arena and discuss policy with people, or as one of my colleagues said, he's down there wonking until the midnight arrives. We do expect to see him momentarily. He'll go inside the Capitol. He has to sign 4 documents. The new executive order on ethics, which is going to put much more stringent limits on what people can do when they leave office. A proclamation making January 22nd a National Day of Fellowship. He'll nominate officially his 19 cabinet posts and his sub-cabinet posts. Only one of those cabinet appointees or nominees seems to be in some trouble at the moment. We still don't know how much. That's Zoe Baird, who was on the platform today, is a candidate for Attorney General. She did acknowledge that she hired illegal aliens and failed to pay Social Security taxes on them. And there's some question now about how swiftly she'll move through the United States Senate.
Tom, our cameras are focused on the East Front for departure because in advance of that signing, we expect to see the quails emerge from that front along with the Gores. The Gores will escort the quails to a Marine helicopter. There inside, they will await the arrival of the Bushes, who will shortly, we would hope and expect, be escorted to that same helicopter by the new president, Bill Clinton, and his First Lady, Hillary.
Let's go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where the Clinton moving in process is well underway, and NBC's Andrea Mitchell, who is our new White House correspondent, is standing by there right now. Andrea, what's going on at the White House?
Well, this is that very awkward period, the transition. One press aide has arrived, and as well as the National Security Advisor, who came prior to the swearing in. But other than that, no one has moved in yet. They are waiting the arrival back here of more staff people in the next couple of hours. They're not going to really move in for a while. They said that tomorrow the boxes will arrive. They still have to shut down the transition office. But they're going to be getting started right away. As you said, there are going to be executive orders, and there are going to also be major policy changes in the next few days by executive order. Among those, the executive orders permitting fetal tissue research. We're expecting on Friday, the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, to have major decisions, including the lifting of the so-called gag order, denying counseling, abortion counseling at federally funded clinics. So there are a lot of things that are going to be done right away, swearing in of the cabinet secretaries, those who have been confirmed. And the first cabinet meeting, we believe, will be on Friday.
Andrea, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump right in there because we see, as we can see, the Gores and the Clintons have come out of the Capitol, and they're saying, did I say the Gores and the Clintons? I'm sorry, the Gores and the Quayles, of course, have come out and they have bid goodbye to each other on the steps. Dan and Marilyn Quayle heading out to get on the helicopter, and we understand that once they get to Andrews, they, as we said a little bit earlier, will be going on to Florida, but they will be coming back to the nation's capital. They feel very strongly they want to stay here and allow their youngsters to finish out the school year before they move back home to Indiana.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens to both of them, because Marilyn Quayle, obviously a well-trained lawyer, has her own ambitions.
Well, you remember when I was leaning down?
And Dan Quayle has kind of repaired his image in the closing year of this administration. He has very strong support in the conservative wing of the Republican Party, which does dominate the nomination process, and many believe that he performed more vigorously than his boss during the presidential debates. And politics is something that he has done with some skill, so we'll see whether he decides to run again for president of the United States the next time. I would think he would welcome the relief as well from being the favorite target of stand-up comedians, both professional and barroom variety, for a period of time.
Spotlight gets a little intense every now and then. In the case of Dan Quayle, it was often cruel. You can see Marine One standing by right there. Although it will not be carrying the new president, it will still be Marine One equipment. We understand that one little point of trivia, it's been named Nighthawk now for this particular journey, and Air Force One will become known for this journey by its tail number 2800. That jet will, of course, be delivering the Bushes to Texas.
You know, kind of a student of the perks of power. I think that the hardest thing to give up would be the ease of transportation. I remember saying to Harold Brown when he was outgoing defense secretary, what are you going to miss most? He said, I had my own Air Force. I'm kidding. Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Clinton. Yes. Blue is the order of the day, Brian. Mrs. Clinton, I'm not an authority on this, but it's worth noting, she's a fan of Donna Karan, the designer. Her inaugural ball tonight designed by Sarah Phillips. And this is from Little Rock, Connie Falls. The inaugural day outfit was designed by a woman from Little Rock, Arkansas. She does like the colors red, royal, and purple, we're told. I've now exhausted my entire body of knowledge about
I was going to let you go. You were doing fine. I figured when you got to the height of the heels, I'd jump in, and there you can see the new president, Bill Clinton, and now former president, George Bush, former for a little less than 45 minutes now.
Mrs. Clinton said on a number of occasions how grateful she was to Barbara Bush for her grace and her helpfulness when they visited the White House to take her through that home. That the president said today, former President Bush, welcome to your new house.
Actually, you wonder what kind of thoughts are going through Mrs. Bush's mind right now. There was, of course, a lot of speculation early on this year about whether or not she really wanted another 4 years at the White House. It's no secret that she is a woman madly in love with George Bush and likes his company and would like to have him around and likes his undivided attention. And I would imagine that she's not quite as broken up as he is right now.
We'll be seeing a lot of them in the next 4 years, Bill and Hillary Clinton. And that helicopter will take George and Barbara Bush eventually on a trip that will take them, as he has described it, into the full-time grandchildren business. It's a wonderful phrase, you know, looking at helicopters, about Lyndon Johnson. He once arrived at an airport where there are a lot of helicopters parked, and one of his aides said, "That's your helicopter over there, Mr. President." He put his arm around him and said, "Son, they're all my helicopters." I brought you a little something. George Bush flying over a Capitol where he has served in so many capacities. He was a member of the United States Congress. He was the director of the CIA. He represented As president, as ambassador to the United Nations, he was the representative to China. He ran the Republican National Committee. He was vice president of the United States for 8 years and president of the United States for 4 years. So he's been very much a part of Washington, D.C. for most of his adult life.
Long regarded as the man with the perfect resume. And
right.
I'm sure this was not the ending that he would have written, but it's the ending that's his on this day, as Bill Clinton assumes the presidency.
George Bush raised in the prosperity of a wealthy Connecticut household, genteel WASP family, environment of prosperity and privilege. Private schools and Yale University, served in the Navy World War II, gives way to a young man from Arkansas whose father was killed in a car wreck, raised by a stepfather whom he loved but had conflict with over his stepfather's alcoholism. Bright and ambitious, came to Georgetown, then to Yale, then to Oxford, opposed the war in Vietnam, went back home to Arkansas, and began a political career that today brings him to Washington, D.C. as the new president.
Though George Bush talks about going into the grandfather business full-time, those who know him well suspect that he'll have a very difficult time dealing with full-time retirement. They suspect that he will become involved in some kind of active retirement work. Exactly what that entails, no one has clearly defined. John Chancellor, you looked at me quizzically over there. Some thoughts?
Well, George Bush is leaving office as a very popular president. The polls have him at 55% approval rating today. That is second only to Ronald Reagan's astounding 63% approval rating when he left. But it also has to be said that Mr. Bush has lived, I got the figures here somewhere, he has lived in public housing as a government servant for 15 of about the last 20 years, 4 years in the White House, 8 years in the vice presidential residence, 1 year in that beautiful house in Beijing, as when he was the China rep, 2 years in the Waldorf Towers in New York as our representative at the United Nations, and for a fellow who made $200,000 a year as president, his pension is $187,000 a year. So long, Mr. Bush, you did well.
But lest we be swept up by those approval ratings, outgoing presidents are a little bit like second-string quarterbacks. Fans love them in part because they're not making the mistake.
Well, Nixon went out at 24%, Carter went out at 34%, so Reagan and Bush did far better than that.
And there are some who believe that he spent so much time in public housing and so much time insulated from the real-life woes of the American public that it got him in trouble in the course of his campaign, of course. We'll be back with more from Washington on this inaugural day, January 20th, 1993, right after this.
The presidential inaugural ceremonies are being sponsored in part by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? It's more than just a question. It's an answer.
Ford trucks, the best, never rest.
You're right. Ford does build in toughness. But we also build in things that help you drive safely. Four-wheel anti-lock brakes are standard on Explorer and Bronco.
Built-in child seats are available on Aerostar, and both Aerostar and Clubwagon offer driver's side airbags. Ford builds tough trucks.
But we also build long-term relationships.
The best-built, best-selling American trucks are built Ford tough.
Tears of pain, tears of joy. But when your eyes are dry, soothe them with the tears of Murine. Closer to your own tears than other leading eye drops or artificial tears. Murine, natural tears formula.
My doctor said Habitrol.
Habitrol. It's a nicotine patch.
That's the one.
For information, call 1-800-685-2000.
Habitrol.
Ask your doctor about Habitrol Nicotine Transdermal System. It's only available by prescription.
You should call your doctor.
Wow, you folks look like experienced travelers.
Well, we are staying at a Clarion hotel.
Did you know if you pay for your room with the American Express card, you can save 30%?
Sure, for business, for pleasure.
So, happy with your room?
Yeah, they told us if they couldn't make us happy, their first night's on them.
Ooh, sounds like a good deal.
Oh, and another thing.
At Clarion, they don't throw your luggage around. Tea?
Thank you. Clarion Hotels and the American Express card. For reservations, call 1-800-4CHOICE.
NBC News coverage of the Clinton inaugural continues. Here again are Tom Brokaw and Bryant Gumbel.
Thank you. We're back here in our kind of makeshift studio, as Brian has described it, and it is truly that, but it has a magnificent view behind us of the nation's capital. We're atop the Labor Building on Constitutional Avenue, awaiting the beginning of the parade. Bill Clinton is going into the Capitol now to sign some papers for the new ethics law and also for the nomination of his cabinet members. And at the White House, they're trying to get his socks into the right drawer. They're trying to get the rocking chair into the right place, and they're trying.
You're talking about what goes in his feet, not the animal.
That's right.
That's
not, yeah, the cat. You know, and the cat's probably prowling around the Oval Office even as we speak. Franklin Pierce, after he was sworn in, went back down to the White House. There was no place for him to sleep. He had to sleep in a
Well, of course, they've got that public reception still to come, and as you noted, Tom, the president has gone into a room down in the Capitol to formalize a couple of pieces of business before moving on to a luncheon. And then after the luncheon, it's on to the parade.
A lot of jobs still to be filled in this administration, and there are going to be some empty offices. The fact of the matter is that the Bush administration said, we want our people to resign. They're done as of noon Wednesday. So that means a lot of the sub-agency jobs, the wheels that make federal machinery turn, are going to be unoccupied for the next couple of days. Now, that doesn't mean your government's going to shut down because it has a certain amount of momentum, but Bill Clinton will have to deal with that almost immediately. I think he's going to sign first this new executive order on ethics. A left-handed president, by the way.
Another one.
Right. Well, that's reassuring. He read it before he signed it.
You wonder at what exact moment the enormity of it all hits Bill Clinton. You get up on a day like today, and obviously you're anxious, and you're going from event to event, and you are the center of attraction, and you are swept up in it. And you wonder at what point, when he's alone with his private thoughts, does the enormity of what he's embarking on hit him.
My guess is it'll come tomorrow morning when he gets his national security briefing for the first time, and he has to make a decision about whether to launch American warplanes against perhaps targets in Iraq, or something blows up someplace in Bosnia, or we have an incident in Somalia.
But even tomorrow, he's got some events attendant to the festivities, you know, the public reception. But yeah, there has to come that time when one man kind of looks and realizes what he's got at hand.
But it's tomorrow that ceremony gives way to reality.
Yeah.
And he looks at the economic figures in this country, and he looks at the expectations that he has helped raise, that we have helped him raise, that the country now expects him to fulfill.
And he talks about the business of trying to downplay them.
Right. I talked to him the other day, to the two of them, really, about what they would do in the first morning that they awoke in the White House. When he was elected president, they looked at each other and laughed. And when I asked the question, Hillary quickly answered, we'll pull the covers over our head. Alan Simpson, who will be a spirited adversary on Capitol Hill, having a good laugh with Al Gore. They were colleagues in the Senate. Al Simpson with one of the keenest senses of humor and one of the sharpest tongues on Capitol Hill. Bob Dole, who relishes the idea that he's now the ranking Republican in the nation's capital, and he too will be a spirited adversary.
If Saddam is famous for cheat and retreat, I guess we could say Alan Simpson has heat and retreat.
Right.
He always manages to stick it to someone and then to apologize a little bit later. If you're wondering about the schedule, they are still pretty much right on schedule. In fact, they might even be ahead of it. They're not supposed to move onto the luncheon until 1:05, which is still about 10 minutes away. The president and his vice president, after leaving this room, will greet those who were among the many entertaining on the platform during the ceremonies today. That would include those of the Philander Smith Choir and also the Ballard High School Choir. And as you can see, the Marine helicopter carrying the former President and Vice President George Bush and Dan Quayle and their wives has arrived at Andrews Air Force Base.
NBC's John Cochran, who has been covering the Bush administration, has more for us right now. John?
Tom, the president, the former president, had not wanted a big to-do out here, but some of his fans, some of the loyal people who worked for him in the campaign have showed up out here. We've got several thousand people. As I say, he didn't want it, but he just has to go along with it. He didn't want to be ungracious by saying they couldn't absolutely be here. The cabinet member who's here is Jack Kemp, and he will not be flying down to Houston with the president, but some of the president's other aides, such as Marlon Fitzwater and Margaret Tutwiler, will be flying with him, Tom. Then they will take the plane back here to Washington. They will not stay with him. You were talking about George Bush living in public housing for so many years. Will he soon be living in private housing in a rented home down in Houston, while he and Mrs. Bush have their new home built just across the street.
Tom, what are you hearing from the White House, the staff around George Bush, the people that you know so well, about what he is likely to do now?
He has refused to accept any the hundreds of invitations he's received to speak, for example, at college commencements. He has also told his aides he will not do what Ronald Reagan did. He will not sell the office of the presidency. He will not fly off to Tokyo and collect a couple of $1 million for appearing there. He will not do anything like that. I'm told privately he was a little unhappy with what former President Gerald Ford has done, some of his business activities, and the president feels that even the former office of the presidency for him is something he must still occupy in a way with great dignity. So he's going to work on his presidential library at Texas A&M. He's going to write his memoirs, make some money with that. All former presidents do that. He says he will be involved in some way in some form of public activities, but he hasn't decided what, possibly a charity. He says he will not criticize Bill Clinton for at least a year. After that, the wraps are off, Tom.
Okay, John, we are watching the doorway of what is traditionally known as Marine One. It's been renamed the Nighthawk. Is that what you said, Brian?
Nighthawk.
Big helicopter.
You know, we've talked about how he and Bill Clinton get along. We can overdo that. He likes Bill Clinton the same way that the Miami Dolphins like the Buffalo Bills, or the University of Miami likes the University of Alabama after losing a big fight. He really hates to lose. George Bush is a real competitor.
Right, and during the course of the campaign, there were some pretty sharp barbs that were exchanged. It was George Bush who said, "These bozos, my dog Billy knows more about foreign policy than they do." And for his part, Clinton said about George Bush, they have no soul, these Republicans. They don't care about the American people.
And what really irks George Bush's former aides now is that they think the American economy is going to bounce back, and that sometime this summer people will say, well, maybe George Bush wasn't such a bad president. Maybe we should have re-elected him. The economy would have come back in any case, and he was a pretty good foreign policy president. And if indeed all these foreign crises, we keep pointing to Bosnia, Somalia, and the trouble within the former Soviet Empire, and of course, above all, Saddam Hussein, that people will say, gee, George Bush looks pretty good.
John, you talked about that the president has declined a number of invitations to speak and is not looking to serve on boards or the like. How low a profile, frankly, do you expect him to try to keep? He is, after all, a man who has spent most of his life in public life.
I think he will eventually accept some of these invitations, but he didn't want to do it while he was in the office of the presidency. I'll tell you, the last several days, he's been busy with some things they don't talk about too much. A lot of people have come to the White House with pleas for pardons, either for clients or for relatives of people who are presently imprisoned. There's an awful lot of that in the last couple of days, and George Bush has had to make a lot of decisions on that. And he also just had to say farewell to a lot of people. Yesterday, he spent the entire day having his picture made with people, and so he's had things to keep him active, along with keeping an eye on Saddam Hussein. So at least he hasn't had time to sit around and mope the last several days.
John, you at all surprised that he's chosen to fly back to Texas rather than up to Kennebunkport?
I'm sorry, I've got a Navy band playing in my ear. Were you saying I'm surprised he's going to Houston instead of Kennebunkport?
Yeah.
Well, the house in Kennebunkport really is not in good shape to go this time of year. You know, it was badly damaged in that storm some time ago, and it's not been completely renovated for winter occupancy. So Houston's a better time to be in mid-January.
Also, the town of Kennebunkport voted against him.
That's true.
Well, the state of Maine voted against him.
Right.
So at least he's going to a state that voted for him, even though narrowly. Goodbye, sir. Goodbye, Mr. President. Good luck to you.
It's one of those big perks you were talking about, Tom. That,
there it is, your own airplane.
He gets to have for the final time.
Whole 747.
Surprised to see the Quails also heading towards that plane. We were led to believe that they were heading to Florida and the Bushes to Texas.
I think they'd just be saying goodbye. That's Jonathan Bush right there off to the right, who is the president's brother, and then Jack Kemp, you see with the glasses and the familiar shock of gray hair, former Buffalo Bills quarterback and leading contender for the Republican presidential nomination at this moment in 1996.
John Cochran talked about George Bush moving perhaps into some charity work. As we see Jonathan Bush, we note that he is chairman of the board of the United Negro College Fund.
Right.
And Bush is with a long tradition of being involved heavily in charity work. And you were right.
Well, just saying goodbye. Yeah.
Well, he said he wanted to leave the presidency with style and class. He said he wanted the transition to be conducted with style and class, and I think most people would say he did just that.
But John, this business about making everybody leave office, all of his appointees on at high noon today, why'd they do that?
Well, I've asked about that. I've not yet had a good answer. They say these people needed to get on with their lives, and so therefore they were told they probably wouldn't be kept by the Clintons, so it was time for them to move on. It was not a convincing answer to me. It seemed a little bit petty.
Yeah, I mean, at the Commerce Department, they were forcing people to leave. They said, if you don't resign, we'll fire you.
They claim it was not any intent on their part to make life more difficult for Bill Clinton. They say they wanted to wrap up neatly the Bush administration, tell these people to get on with their lives. As I say, it's not a convincing answer, and it's probably the one thing we can point to that would leave a bad taste in the Clinton people's minds.
Thank you, John. We're now back at the Capitol Rotunda. I think that this is the Ballard High School Choir from Kentucky. Wendell Ford, who's presiding over these inaugural ceremonies.
And also the choir from Philander Smith College.
And also Philander Smith. Both choirs together, or is it both together? That's right. And we heard Philander from at the inaugural ceremonies itself. One of the privileges of being a college in the hometown of the new president.
Well, there's no debating the fact that Bill Clinton loves his music.
Right.
This is a scene we'll see repeated quite often over the course of the next 4 years, we would expect.
And he loves the music of the church. He loves the music of the Baptist church, and he's very much at home when he goes into the Black Baptist churches of the South and at ease with them. Those churches, their music, their rituals, because he's grown up in that culture. Bill Clinton once said during the course of this campaign, when asked by Bill Moyers, what is the one issue on which you would risk your political career? And he answered very swiftly, race. He grew up in Little Rock watching Central High School and the torment of the National Guard as they attempted to integrate that school. He became a racially tolerant figure who went a long way toward changing the political complexion of the South.
You see some of the 230 invited guests in Statuary Hall who are there for the inaugural luncheon with the new president, vice president, their spouses and families. The guests are in the main cabinet designates, Joint Congressional Committee members, House and Senate Committee chairmen, congressional leadership representatives and the like.
The Speaker of the House and Chairman Ford.
I think that's the first time that Bill Clinton has heard Hail to the Chief played just for him. The luncheon menu: grilled salmon, rosemary chicken, pecan rice, ginger carrots, broccoli is on the menu. It would not have been in the previous administration. Apple, cranberry, brown Betty, creme anglaise. The wine will be the Jekyll Estate Chardonnay 1990 and the Cabernet from the same vineyard, 1989.
There will be a presidential toast from the chairman of the inaugural ceremony, Senator Wendell Ford, who, by the way, had this comment about the broccoli. He said it was not a jab at George Bush. He said we understood very clearly that President Bush didn't like broccoli, but President-elect Clinton does, so we'll have some broccoli at the luncheon. It's that simple.
All right, let's go to Andrews Air Force Base now, where 2800 as it's being called for this trip because it's not carrying the President of the United States, but instead the former President. We asked some children in Santa Monica from the Franklin Elementary School and Lincoln Middle School to say what they would have to say to Mr. Bush. And, pardon me, this is from Farnsworth Elementary School in Chicago, and this is what they wrote to him.
Dear President Bush, there are a lot of wonderful things you've done that I am thankful for.
For keeping America's children away from drugs.
For sending the troops to Kuwait during Operation Desert Storm.
Thank you, President Bush, for bringing food to those hungry Somalians and clearing out the gangs. For all you have done to keep peace between the United States and other countries.
For signing the American Disability Act.
You've been a wonderful president for the past 4 years. I was hoping that you would win the election. I even asked my mom and dad to vote for you.
Just because you weren't chosen in the 1992 election doesn't mean you lost. It means it's someone else's turn.
Thank you, President George Bush, for everything you have done for the world.
Very touching and a wonderful child sentiment. Doesn't mean you lost, it's just someone else's turn.
Nice thoughts. I even asked my mommy and daddy to vote for it.
Right. On board with George Bush is James Baker. This is not how he expected to be leaving Washington either. He treasured his job as the Foreign Minister of the United States, Secretary of State. He believed that he was making progress in the Middle East when he was summoned by his old friend from their Texas days, George Bush, to run the campaign. And it must be said, did not distinguish himself in that capacity.
No, he too is heading off to write his memoirs.
Right.
The subject of a considerable bidding war among various publishing houses, but his typewriter or word processor, I should say, these days is going to be quite busy down in Texas.
Carried him to the Persian Gulf, most recently to Somalia, to Moscow for the signing of an important arms reduction agreement with Boris Yeltsin. Took him to Helsinki to meet with Gorbachev as they put together the alliance for what was going on in the Persian Gulf. To economic summit meetings with the other leaders of the industrial world. Now bears him from the nation's capital to his adopted home of Texas.
It was the part of the job, Tom, that intrigued him most, that he obviously most thoroughly enjoyed, and I guess it could be argued was in great part his undoing.
Right.
He was a man who relished his personal relationships with other world leaders, used those relationships to do business, focused his attention on those relationships, and ultimately that attention is what rubbed an awful lot of American voters the wrong way.
Well, better to be going this way than the way Richard Nixon, for example, walked. He got on Air Force One and flew to California in utter disgrace, having been the first president to resign that office, and now he has repaired himself to a degree. George Bush fought the good fight and lost on even terms.
There's no
John Chancellor, John Cochran, are you still out there?
I was just going to note there's no easy way to go unless you win the last election.
Nobody likes to lose, Brian.
Yes.
John Chancellor, like almost everything else in the world, Air Force One is getting bigger these days. Remember those rides in the old 707 cramped in the back?
It was. It seems the old one now, which was an enormous airplane, seems like about a 1948 convertible coupe.
Right.
Compared to what they have now, the biggest airplanes you ever saw. Tom, I thought it was, as long as we're all writing social notes from all over here, I thought the president's farewell to the vice president, or Mr. Bush's farewell to Mr. Quayle, was peremptory at least. And it was just sort of a wave and up the stairs.
Right.
He hugged Mrs. Quayle, but I don't know if you noticed that or not, but it was just sort of a hand, so long, pal.
Yeah.
It was very much in passing. You wonder, without reading too much into that, if that was simply because he was struggling to control his own emotions and wanted out of that scene.
That is I think probably the right thing to say, is that he just didn't want to get emotional with anybody, although Mr. Quayle did say some pretty sharp things about the White House and the campaign last fall.
Yeah, I think my guess is he wanted to get on the airplane and get out of town, as they say. Some of you now may be cutting away for local news. For the rest of you, the Clinton coverage will continue on this inaugural day in just a moment here on NBC.